I've got a longsword that I can never use in HEMA because it is a reenactment sword, but I love it. It weighs a ton, but in a good way. In that once you get it moving,
Right.
it won't stop kind of thing. And it was made by Heron Armory, and I've used it a lot against other feathers, against other long swords. And the crossguard is obviously a softer metal because it's got two D rings and like twisted. It's a twisted crossguard, but
Right.
the edge that I can't feel a single burr in it. You know?
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Just so
So,
wide, just really wide.
yeah, yeah. It's quite a wide blade. It's a narrow fuller, and it's just a chunk. Like it's just a chunk of steel. I used it against Ben, who I mentioned earlier, one of my students. I thought, oh, we'll have a quick go, right? Because I don't want to use it too much because it, like I said, it is quite heavy. And I said, okay, we'll have a fight. I'll be much slower than usual, so you know, we'll see how it goes. Anyway, he put in a solid guard, what we would call like posta corona, and
Oh
it's
yeah.
just like bam, and
Yeah.
it's like you know he's there. But this sword came in, and it's like, no, I won't be denied. And the sword just comes down, and it connects with his solid guard, and it just collapses his structure and just goes right into his head, and he's just like donk, and he was like, what the hell? So yeah,
Sword mace.
yeah, pretty much. So it's like I call it the father of swords because it reminds me of, I don't know if you've ever read. There's a guy, Joe Abercrombie, and he writes these really great kind of gritty fantasies, but they're really sarcastic and incredibly funny. And there's this one character who's, yeah, he's got a sword called the Father of Swords, and it's just like
Oh,
this,
nice.
yeah, and it's just this unbeatable sort of thing, and it just cuts through swords and like chips them and goes, you know. So
Oh, so
yeah.
it's like every katana then, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, don't worry. Like tanks.
Yeah, you don't need RPGs. You just need a katana. It's the best anti-tank weapon. Everybody knows that.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I don't even know why we have arms races. Just you know, we just need. Yeah.
We just need
Um,
more katanas and katana launchers, and that's it.
yeah, that would be amazing. Because I've, as you've probably had it as well, people talking about katanas like, oh, yeah, you don't understand the mysticism and all of this behind it. Have you ever been asked to make one?
Actually, I've made a couple katanas. One of the very first swords I hand forged was a nice little wakizashi. I've still got it out in the garage.
Oh, that's cool.
It's like 20 years old or something.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, you're just cutting through things all the time. You're like, oh, I need to. I've got this. You know, I've got this massive block of steel. I'll just cut through that. I'll use that for later.
No, you want to know one of the I've definitely done this before though. So there's some places online where you can they're like they're hand forged, but they're Chinese, they're not Japanese, and they're low cost. So for like 190 or maybe $240, you can get like a decent handmade shark katana, right? They've got these swords don't flex because katanas don't flex, they
Yeah,
bend. You follow me? Or they snap if they're over hard.
yeah, yeah.
So these swords are actually reasonably abusable, but I've definitely taken one to a steel folding chair before and made a video of how fast you can break a magic katana.
Really.
Yeah, I mean, you can poke holes in it because it's a sharp piece of steel, and you can definitely dent and bang it, but then you hold it up and like the edge is gone, chips are out of the hard part of the edge. And then as soon as you hit something the first time and it doesn't cut and the blade wobbles too much, it's bent. It takes kink. I've
Yeah,
done it with about I've done it with about five katanas in my life. Never an antique or anything, obviously. That would be dumb. But they are not they're not magic. They are wonderful cutting swords.
yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful cutting swords. But I mean, I don't even think really I don't even really think you're going through plate armor with one of them, much less any of the movie things that we see.
Yeah.
They just cut through guns. The guy goes to parry a katana with his assault rifle, and then it gets cut in half and his head.
I
You know,
saw, we actually watched The Last Samurai. My students and I from
oh, where
uni.
he
That
cuts the
happened.
rifle in half, and
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, come on.
Yeah. And I'm like, it looks cool, but
It
no.
looks cool, but
Yeah.
no. I don't
But
even care if that was a pop metal gun. You are not cutting through it like that.
yeah, because I did a video on YouTube about like pole arms just get a really bad rap because everything cuts through it like it's a matchstick.
Right, right.
You know, and
Yeah, it's not like sapped ash that like you literally have to hit it with a hatchet 10 times to get through it. No, no. But you can walk up and like you can parry it and grab it with your hand and use your dagger to
yeah.
snap the pole arm. And I'm like, oh, come on.
My favorite is in Troy when somebody knees a spear in half. Like he uses his knee to break a
Yeah,
spear.
and I'm like, you just broke your leg, dude. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
I'm like, what is that, like a dried olive branch spear shaft or something? I mean, come on.
Yeah. Yeah, the hero of Greece, like Achilles turns
Right.
up with a dried olive branch and is like, oh man, I should have brought a katana.
One thing that we're seeing a lot of at the moment is random people all over the place sort of hearing about this HEMA thing and kind of wanting to get involved with this HEMA thing. And so they decide, okay, what is this HEMA thing? Well, clearly it's a bunch of people fighting with swords. So they go and buy themselves some random swords from random makers with dubious quality control, and they just start sparring with their friends.
Yeah.
And they're maybe not wearing any fencing masks. They're maybe not wearing any padded gloves. They're maybe not using sparring safe swords. They're maybe not observing any sensible safety precautions. They're just sort of beating on each other with swords. Is that HEMA? Well, I don't think so. I think that's just playing about swords.
Yeah.
But people are then taking videos of this and posting it out and calling it HEMA.
Right, yeah.
And this is just perpetuating the problem. So we have a lot of people, an increasing amount of people becoming aware of HEMA by way of people who aren't actually doing HEMA, just messing about with swords unsafely and calling it HEMA.
Yeah.
And if the community doesn't take some kind of stand against that and say, no, that's not HEMA, because HEMA is a safe sport, we're done with proper protective equipment.
Yeah.
If we just accept any old nonsense, then any old nonsense will be acceptable.
Yeah, no, okay.
So some people will say that this is gatekeeping, and it is.
Yeah.
But gatekeeping is how you keep some of the barbarians out of your city.
Yeah.
There's healthy kinds of gatekeeping and there's unhealthy kinds of gatekeeping. And we should focus on the healthy kind to make sure that we make a stand about unsafe practices while still allowing in anyone who wants to do safe HEMA. They should be able to come in and do it. But we should be able to say, no, what you're doing is not HEMA because you're just pissing about with swords. And
yeah.
What are you doing?
I've had 2 emails. I'm not going to name names or anything. They one of them hasn't shown up. He didn't come to class, but they were like, hey, I want to join your club kind of thing. And one came for 1 session. And one of them said, oh, hello. Yeah, I'd like to join. I have extensive experience of HEMA. And I was like, oh, okay, fair enough. Because I've had people from like Scholar Gladiatoria come down and they're like, hey, I've moved to Cardiff. Can I join up with you guys? Yeah, absolutely. Come on in. And people who've practiced with other clubs, more than welcome, come on in. So I was like, who did you train with? Where have you trained? And he went, oh, no, me and my friends would get drunk around a campfire and we'd hit each other with rolling swords. So you're spot on in terms of like some people. And I'm kind of like, okay, that's not HEMA. But the second one, and he didn't turn up, and I wish he had, but he was like, yeah, I've got a lot of experience in HEMA. And I said, oh yeah, like what have you done? What kind of weapons do you use? He says, I'm quite experienced with a bat'leth. you know, the weapon from Star Trek, and I was
Hmm.
like, that what? I said that's not HEMA.
I think as a community, we're doing a lot of things really well, doing a lot of things really badly. And one of the things we're doing quite badly that we need to improve on is showing better what is good HEMA. There was a thread on the UK HEMA discussion group on Facebook a while ago about what is the HEMA model. And people from out with HEMA perceived that to be putting on safety gear and fighting, making contact sparring with swords. And that's what they perceived the HEMA model to be. And that's really far from how I conceptualize it. It doesn't mention anything about our source material. It doesn't mention anything about the historicity, anything like that. But what a lot of people seem to be picking up from our community is that HEMA is just beating on each other with swords, possibly with competitions.
Yeah.
And this is not a great face to be putting to the world.
No.
And I think while this is contributing to some extent with the explosion of numbers to the HEMA community across the world, which is a good thing, it's also meaning that a lot of people have a very skewed point of view on what it is we're doing, and have the assumption that any old nonsense will be quite acceptable because that's the HEMA model.
Yeah, I think with HEMA, it's slightly more forgiving because it's just like, oh, okay, you're either going to hurt yourself or hopefully you don't hurt anybody else, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I'm really strict on a couple of things, which is the back of the head and
Oh, yeah.
just people leathering, because the thing is the sword will do most of the work for you, so you don't need to and I say this all the time and people get sick of me saying it, and I'm like, no, the sword will do most of the work for you. That's what it's there for, right?
Yeah.
You try to chop a steak in half with the edge of your hand, you're gonna need a lot of you're gonna be there for a while.
Yeah.
But with a sword, it's not, you know what I mean? With a knife or whatever, with an edged weapon, it's not the same. And just take a look at that difference. So the amount of force that you need is, with a sharp blade, is barely anything. There's a video that I put up, and it's like a cautionary kind of thing that I've put up for my students. Because I just don't want them to ever dick around with sharps or anything like that.
Yeah.
And you should Google it. Just Google, I don't know, sword, sausage, mouth, nose. I don't know, or swords. Anyway, this guy gets drunk, right? And this fella sticks a sausage in his mouth and then leans back, and the guy takes a sharp sword.
Yeah, I just looked that up real quick. Yeah, I know what. Yeah,
yeah, and he goes to cut the sausage with no effort. He just chops the end of this guy's nose off, and it's like, yeah, because they're fucking weapons of war. Swords more than anything. They have one job.
Yeah. Actually, we had so Dublin HEMA, we actually did a HEMA barbecue there last year. Yeah, last year. Fucking lost track of all time. But we, I know, but basically it was hilarious because Neil just turned to me at the end of one session of training and was like, Emmett, do you know where you can get a pig? And my immediate reaction was, just because I grew up in the countryside doesn't, fuck yeah, I know where to get a pig. And because I'm the only country boy in the club, but we actually got a pig and we hung it up in Neil's back garden, and everybody brought, if you had a sharp, they brought it with them. And the first thing that we all learned was, you do not have to swing hard at all. The only thing you have to do is get good edge alignment, because dear God, if you get good edge alignment, there was one cut in particular that one of the guys did with I think it was a kukri. Yeah. And quite literally, he just did it like snap cut like that. Yeah. And it it cut through bone diagonally. It just
Yeah.
took off part of the leg, and we all just went,
I've got one right here.
yeah,
They're
that is a nice one.
yeah, it is. It's lovely,
Yeah.
and it's such a meaty blade.
Yeah.
Like-
They're just terrifying.
They are. Yeah.
Like, but like even one of the other things that we found was, Will did a Zwerchau with the sharp longsword, and I'll send you the video because it's just like, it's only about, maybe it's like a 10-second video, but he hits the pig just below the shoulder blade, because we turned the pig around to get a few other cuts in,
Yeah.
and he hit just below the shoulder blade, and it buries into the spine, and the whole bottom of the top of the pig shoulders stayed completely still. The bottom of the pig just swung like that, because
Yeah.
he had nearly cut through the spine. Like, he nearly cut the thing clean through. And he said the only reason it didn't is because he stopped. He said if he felt like he could have kept going, but he was like, oh shit, because he felt it hit the bone, and he just kept going. Because
Yeah.
sword, like you said, it's the same with any tool. Like, it's one of the things I've had to tell people when I've had them in my forge of, let the hammer do the work.